He came in when they were in 12th. They're now in 14th at the end of, pretty much the end of this round of fixtures. Have you seen positives from Ruben Amorim's time at Man United?
Not at the moment. You mentioned there nobody likes to lose games, of course not, but sometimes it's the way you lose. It's the way they give up some of the goals in the second half. Obviously some mistakes from players, losing possession. Obviously you knew Newcastle were going to put you under pressure, obviously. So that's the big hang-up you'd have. They've lost 14 league games, and they lost 14 last season. So that's why you have to point the finger at this group of players. No, the only defence I have, obviously, for a lot of the players, is a lot of them are still new to the Premier League. And the manager's new to the Premier League. I think the manager, if you spoke to him, I think he's scratching his head. He's frustrated in that interview, of course. He wants to focus on the next game, but you also have to reflect on the game today. That's where we're at. I bet you he can't believe how bad the United team is. I bet he's obviously can't say that, and he's talking about recruiting this summer. But this group of players, the mistakes they're making, I've mentioned at the end of the game, they can't seem to get around the pitch. There's no power in the team. Some of the players who can run, I think there's some players who can run, but they don't want to run. That's another worry. Some of the goals they gave up, you got to experience right back, just letting somebody run by him. Now that's the bit I would be frustrated with. But I think the Premiership has caught this manager and his coaching staff out. Even his first game where we covered was down at Ipswich, and Ipswich drew with him, and Ipswich probably could have won it near the end. And I bet you was thinking, this is tough. And I know people do their homework, and these coaches and staff and obviously players do the homework before they go to a club. But I think he's gone in there, and I think he's been shocked at how bad this group of players are.
But how is there that gap between what the analysts will have done from his side and from Manchester United's side before?
The only thing I'd say, I still think you don't know a group of players or their qualities until you actually get in the door and start working with them. Of course you're on the outside looking in, you do your little bit of homework, of course you do. You look at players and you'll have a bit of pride and ego to think, I can improve these players, I can make them better. That's a manager's job. And they brought in some players, but I think over the last couple of years, and before obviously this manager came in, I'm not putting it all on him, a lot of the recruitment was bringing players in who've never played in the Premier League. And I think it seems to have cut a lot of them out. They can't seem to cope with the demands, the physical side of the game. The lack of goals is a huge problem for Man United, because usually you look at Man United over the years and think, well, there'll be some sort of entertainment, they'll score goals, they'll get at him. But with 15, 20 minutes ago, this game was over. United fans must be looking, scratching their heads going, this game is over. There's no way we're getting back in this. We've only scored the one goal. We don't score many. If anything, it was going how many you concede. And then we took the players' decision making. We have a goalkeeper coming in today. It's difficult to get up to speed for a goalkeeper, particularly making saves. But in terms of playing out from the back and taking chances, to me, that's just madness. That's just common sense. That's just your football knowledge. Why take chances at Newcastle where you're under the cosh? You're trying to chip balls into the middle of the park. That's where you have to look at the players and go, look, lads, give us a bit of a chance. And as I said, there's nothing wrong with losing football matches. The great teams lose football matches, but sometimes it's the way you lose it. And that second half, particularly from United, nowhere near good enough. It's easy for a manager to say, let's focus on Thursday. No, you have to look at today. This group of players, a bit of fight, a bit of spirit. They're lacking in quality, they're lacking pace, they're lacking power. But my goodness, show some fight. They didn't do that enough in the second half.
Just to pick up on the point that you're making about the players, because when Amorim came in, he came in with a great reputation of not just dealing with young players and developing them, but also of kind of older players where he was reinventing them or giving them a new lease of life. And it was widely praised for his tactical prowess. There was a lot said about the system that he wanted to play and questions asked as to whether Man United players would be able to do that. If he's not getting the message across, does that say something about the player's ability to take on instruction?
A bit of both. I think there's nothing wrong with a manager having his set ways and his philosophy, shall we say. But I played under some managers, but also you have to adapt. If you're working with a group of players and if you're constantly losing football matches, I know he's hanging his hat on Thursday's game against Leon, and he's thinking that'll get him out of jail really for the club getting the Champions League. But if you're losing week in, week out, or losing 14 league matches and there's still a few to go, you must sit with your staff and say to yourself, listen, it's well and good again having your mindset, but someone must say, but can we tweak it? Can we change it a little bit? Because if you keep getting beaten, and again, it's on the back of last season, obviously that's not all in this manager, then something's wrong. The players can't cope with it. There's players playing for Man United today. I go back to Eriksen. United's midfield, they're not mobile. They can't go around the pitch. Newcastle's midfield were more powerful, they were stronger, they were getting stronger as the game was going on. But Eriksen should have left Man United maybe 1 or 2. United are still going back to the players who I think are a major problem. Are these good players? I think some of them are. But are they good enough for Man United? Absolutely not. And sometimes actually that's not on the players, that's on the club for throwing them in there. You're throwing young lads into there, you're bringing Shaw back into the group and you're hoping one or two of these senior players will help. But the signs are, again, I go back, we done the game last week. My eyes don't lie to me. I'd love to be sitting here watching Man United win a 2 or 3 and go, listen, I love everything about them. They've got pace, they've got power, they've got quality, they've got characters, they've got an outstanding goalkeeper, the spine is fantastic, amazing bench. United have none of that. Almost the opposite to what Newcastle had today. That's how far they're off it.
Former Manchester United captain Roy Keane didn't hold back after watching his old club fall apart at St. James's Park. Speaking as a pundit post-match, Keane criticized the team's lack of effort and defensive organization, calling the performance as embarrassing and unacceptable for a club of this size. Keane highlighted individual errors and questioned the leadership on the pitch. You don't need to be a genius to figure it out. That's just common sense. Track your runners, stay switched on. Basics! The 4-1 defeat leaves United in a troubling 13th place, and Keane believes the issues run deeper than just the manager. There's no fight, no urgency. It's a huge worry. Do you agree with Keane? Is this Man United side lacking leaders?